Good morning, everyone. This is Piero San Giorgio. Today, I'm very happy to have in my Swiss mountains, for a change, Mr. Pascal Borel. Good morning, Pascal.
Hey, good morning, Piero. Thank you very much for welcoming me here in your place.
So today we are speaking in English for
Yep.
our English-speaking audience. And for those who might not know you, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your background?
Right, very well. I mostly have worked in the financial industry for the best part of my life. I worked indeed in the food and beverage industry, energy industry, investigation. I worked also, long story short, most of my career was based on analyzing the mutual fund performances throughout the world. And I introduced here in Switzerland for both banks and the pension fund management industry what they call open architecture management, which is the very basis on which asset management is delivered today on a global scale here in Switzerland, but also in France, in Luxembourg, everywhere basically. And so I've been the referee, if you wish, or analyzing the good performances of mutual funds and distributed the awards, what we used to call it Micropole S&P or S&P Micropole Awards, to those performing well into the management of their funds in any given sector. It could be Swiss equity, US equity, global, diversified, bonds, whichever strategy you have. And then I did try to retire when I was kind of 45-ish years old. And of course, I've never worked more since I was meant to actually plug off my true professional activities. And at some stage, some friends of mine from North America, the US, from France, from London, said to me that I couldn't hide in my mountains, in my Swiss mountains anymore, and that I had to share my professional path and the conclusions that I have drawn from it with the rest of the world. And we could clearly analyze and see that the current not only financial dynamic, but all democracies are completely dysfunctional in the sense that they don't serve the interest of the larger number. And based on that fact, I analyzed with my colleagues which are the sector of human activities which weigh the most on the quality of life that we all have or not on this earth. And I started to write this book that is now available on Amazon, on my website, called 2024. And lots of people are asking me, why did I call it 2024? Very simple, actually. You had George Orwell telling us about, in his book, 1984, about horror, about what we are actually living through today in terms of the state control and the way family values are being completely dismantled, creating, division up to the heart of our families. And we analyzed all of this, and we can clearly see that the main driver of what we are all observing today is the lack of harmony in the financial flows between the middle class, the only people creating value today, and the governance system. You could call it the state or the politicians, if you wish. And if you address the harmony of the money flows between those two, you are going to solve 90% of the equation you're trying to solve in terms of giving back their strength to the democracies in the service of the only sovereign, the people. Why am I telling you this? Because if you look at all commodities on a worldwide scale, you'll find that there are three items which represents 90% of the volume of trading exchange on a worldwide basis, and that is petrol, gas, charcoal. energy. And at the end of the day, the value of your work is given to you through money. You invest your energy into doing your job, and as a gratification, you get money which is the energy that you've transformed into money, that you can store in a bank account and spend whenever you wish, later, further down the line, or what have you. And energy represents once more 90% of the volume of trade exchanges on Earth. And as long as you don't define the budget of the state, this unlimited access that they have to your money is the main driver of all war, of all dictatorship. It gives them an unlimited power to impose whatever they wish or whatever is in their interest, in the interest of power today on the planet. So just reverting to my book, what does it address? First, education, because all the wise people that have thought about the art of governing human beings all came to the same conclusion. It is the education that is not only the driver, but the guarantee of the success of civilizations. So I address in the book, first, education, of course, health, because this is my biggest chapter. We live into an empire of lies when it comes to your health. They're trying to make you believe that you need to feed 3 times a day, that you need to eat sugar morning, lunchtime and evening, which is the main driver of all kind of inflammatory disease that we all suffer from. And in my book, I'm just trying to tell you that there are no disease. You have the symptoms of your wrongdoing. And that is the driver of all your ill feeling or what have you. Of course, you fall ill. Disease is a concept that was invented by the Greek in order to make you a client of your bad health. And this is totally wrong. Doing intermittent fasting, reducing the amount of sugar. In other words, respecting your biological tools is the best way you can avoid being ill and so forth. So I'm addressing again education, health, and then of course I'm going to democracies. What is a democracy? Demos, kratos, demos the people, kratos decide. And today, into the representative democracies that we all live in, you decide of nothing, zero. When you put your ballot in the box, it is the time at which you decide you're not going to decide anything anymore. It's game over. You're giving this power to your representative. And believe you me, they don't have your interest at stake. No. They play for their own interest, for their own financial power, for their own what have you. Look at Nancy Pelosi, which is under attack by Donald J. Trump today because she's been trading, outperforming out of the insider informations that she's getting all the time. She's performing better on an annual basis over the last probably 10 years, if not more, than the best hedge fund managers, the top professionals in New York. So I'm just saying...
She's very lucky.
Is it luck? Well, to some extent, Piero, you're absolutely right. She's very lucky on the basis that you, the people, you, the citizen, have allowed something like this to happen. Because the legal and constitutional structures are not protecting you as a citizen. And you've left the system drift that way because of your inaction, because you're not active, because you're not taking control, when it would be so simple to realize.
So you've been quite famous in Switzerland recently because of your book that is having great success.
Thank you.
But also because you are showing that Switzerland is not such a great democracy as it sounds or as it looks. Give us some examples why Switzerland is not so great as it's supposed to be.
One of my favorite subjects. I'm very proud of Switzerland. Switzerland was probably the first true democracies in Western Europe in 1291 and served as an example of a few cantons, actually, which decided to be free of the rest of Europe. And we had to struggle battles against the Habsburg, the Germans actually, in order to get there. And we created a system which is called, as you said, Piero, direct democracy. The direct democracy means that whichever decision the government is taking, I'm just wrapping it up into its simplest form for the understanding of each and every one. So the idea is that the people are actually deciding through votation, through voting of all the major issues, trying to make the Swiss people true citizens. And we've been like that for many years. It was very successful. But of course, you have to understand that Switzerland is a little island in the middle of Europe, and that all our politicians today are tending to copy the mistakes of our neighbors. And it has dramatic effects on Switzerland itself, because we're losing our sovereignty. We're losing our capacity to, have our own currency, to vote, and so forth. And actually, if you think about it, the European people, the EU, likes Switzerland, but what they consider a threat is the electoral system that we have in place, because it still gives a form of freedom to the citizens. And that is unacceptable in the, I would say, remorseless search for power of the EU people, of the European politician. And that is not compatible with their plans. So Switzerland, from a direct democracy where the people decide, is going to go into the general direction of what we observe in each and every country of Europe, i.e. a dictatorship of the state. And it's the exact opposite of what a democracy should be. We're losing our sovereignty step by step. It goes so far as to, like we've seen over the last few weeks, the politicians have accepted that when a EU, I would say, decision is rendered, the Swiss will, and if the Swiss ain't in agreement with a EU new rule or what have you, the Swiss or the politician will use the creation of value of the Swiss people to pay fines in the scale of billions of Swiss franc directly and indirectly, meaning that politicians are not defending the decision of citizens, of the Swiss citizens. They comply with the dictatorship of the EU, and further, and even worse, they are going to use the value of the hard work of Swiss people in order not to have to negotiate on behalf of the interest of the people they are meant to defend, that they are meant to organize, that the politicians are meant to provide the structures in which the citizens can create value. And no, our Swiss politicians are became soft bellies, if you wish. I'm sorry to, okay. And it's drifting in the wrong direction completely. And even if the Swiss oppose it, they will be fined for just giving their true opinion of how the whole thing should be managed. It's a disaster.
So we are recording this a few days after our 1st of August national holiday, which was also the day where the United States announced new tariffs against Switzerland. I presume that we will all agree that it's good for the US, but it's probably not good for exports of Switzerland, which should focus, in my opinion, on Asia. But anyway, that's another story. Why do you think our Swiss negotiation capacities have failed us?
Well, because we do not have politicians which have had their hands in the dirt working truly. They are good speakers, they speak well and so forth, but they are not acclimatized anymore to what I called a non-armed conflict, where the idea of a conflict is never to some extent defeat an opponent. No, it's to create a level playing field in which we can all work together, exchange knowledge, goods, and services. And Donald Trump is a deal maker. You know, he wrote The Art of the Deal, and what I love most about the whole thing is that he has chosen the national holiday of Switzerland to declare that we were now going to be imposed the same tariffs exporting our Swiss goods to the US as the tariffs we apply to US goods being imported into Switzerland. So it's just putting everyone on a level playing field. Donald Trump is not requiring tariffs on the Swiss goods which exceed what we already do, what we already practice the opposite way. And the Swiss politicians, or the state, should I say, is so eager to maintain the obscene money flow that they get their way on the tariffs imposed on US goods into Switzerland, that they knew those tariffs were going to be imposed by Donald J. Trump. But they knew it for over 3 months. And they've done absolutely nothing in order to prevent this from happening. A bit like if they had thought that Donald Trump would never apply them because we are Switzerland and the people love little Swiss chocolate, cheese and watches. No, they are grossly incompetent. They didn't go to Washington, to the Oval Office, saying, Donald, we want no tariff, full reciprocity between our two countries, and we're going to carry on trading the way we've done so far. But that would have meant that the Swiss state would have had to given up the undue, tariffs which were feeding their cashier, in an obscene fashion. And the politicians, they are not there to protect the Swiss citizens anymore. They protect their sources of revenues, just like any business should be managed to some extent. But in this case, let's face it, those revenues that the Swiss people were generating from applying huge taxes on any US goods coming into Switzerland, the Swiss citizens would never see the color of a dime. No, it was all money kept by the states to compensate for their miserable management when it comes to the financial statements of a country like Switzerland. They are miserable. They are grossly incompetent. They're just there into a cash protection, a revenue protection exercise. And this is what they're doing. And and Donald J. Trump has given them a deadline to the 7th, i.e. in 3 days, to start applying those tariffs. So once more, he's been absolutely, I would say, fair play. He's a fair player. He's saying, I've warned you 3 months ago, you are into a revenue protection exercise for your good self rather than being honest with your own citizens that you are meant to defend and protect. And now I'm applying the taxes on your national holiday. Great move. But I'm so fair play that if you create, and the Swiss have done it, a task force which has a mandate to come to me and negotiate the tariffs at a much lower rate. You want to keep 15% tariff going into your country because it's a indirect tax that you taking from your citizens, i.e. you've been dishonest once more, you can keep it and we'll apply the same at the other side and we'll make 15% of every Swiss good. So as the President of the United States, it's filling up the U.S. account, if you wish, or the money that the state is making, the U.S. is making. So I'm not against it, but I truly find it dishonest versus my own citizens and mostly versus the Swiss citizens. But the Swiss, let's face it, they are pragmatic. They're going to go through a little accounting and they're going to say, we need to keep those revenues at 20%. Let's apply 20%, tariffs on exports, imports, both ways. The EU, with Ursula von der Leyen, they've lowered the whole thing to 15%. I'm pretty certain that the Swiss are not going to be courageous enough in order to go to Donald and say, let's put it to 0 to boost the trades. And the state will earn nothing, but the consumers, the citizens, will eventually get all their products at their true price, not at an enhanced price, because the state is stealing from the consumption of customers. So that's what's going on at the moment.
In your book and in your conferences and talks online, you explain how we can take back the power for the people in a democratic and peaceful way.
Yeah.
How could Switzerland and the other countries start this process?
I'd start by saying that the true strength of a strong individual is absolute non-violence. Because a great pride of human beings is to never lower yourself to the level of those who commit injustice. So, what counts the most on the equation is, again, the harmony of the money flow between the middle class and the governance system that you have in place. Once that is set, 90% of the equation you're trying to solve is being solved. So every economist, all the technocrats, all the people who have kept, I would say, an intellectual honesty, came to the conclusion that to perform its mission, a state need to gather between 14 and 17% of the value created by every and each economic actor in the nation. And that's been proven. Because let's remember one thing. What is the role of the state? And that is to defend intellectual and private property. I should have said private property, intellectual property. And all the other missions are coming from this first mandate, i.e. justice, i.e. police forces, i.e. the armed, the army. But all of this, derives directly from the first mission, which is, again, to protect private property, intellectual property. In the other domain, sector of human activities, they're not even bad. They're inexistent. They should never have anything to say into education, into health, into energy, into all the other domains, food and beverage, of course, that should be managed by true professionals. In the book, I'm describing how the Constitution, which is the main beam, if you wish, of the building in which we all live, should protect the people from the dictatorship of its government. And that is the only function of a true constitution. It is to protect the people. And this is why the US, they have the Second Amendment, which allow anyone to bear arms. And that is not to kill your neighbor. That is to create a balance of power, so you don't have people armed to the teeth on one hand and slaves on the other, which is, of course, completely dysfunctional. And we should all be equal before the law, before the Constitution, before the value of money, and before taxes. Because some people are going to tell me that we need to have, the richest people paying more taxes than the others. Wrong. Because the richest people, they don't pay any taxes. They always go through specific deals with the politicians, and they don't pay taxes. They have foundations, all kind of legal structures, left, right, and center in every fiscal heavens, and they don't pay taxes. The rule should be whatever you create in terms of value through your hard work, you should pay 17% to the state to performing the mission, which is to preserve private property and intellectual property. Then you should have a forced saving, mandatory saving for education, health, retirement. If you have something like that, you decentralize the money flows. Because as soon as you centralize the money flows when it comes to education, we've seen it in the US recently, you centralize money flows when it comes to health, or whichever domain, you know that people are going to, like parasites, be on top of that thing and grow their little commissions. And this is not on. You should have a direct relationship with your doctor, and should be given back to you the money which is taken by the taxes and the state or the mandatory health insurances. It should be given back to you, so you have a straightforward relationship with your doctor, which is not handcuffed in terms of the protocols that they're going to use to help you go through the loss of your most valued asset, your health. We should do the same when it comes to education. The state's got nothing to do imposing programs on a one-size-fits-all type of basis. No, it should be given back to the, I would say, professionals of education. That's so fundamental that I'm explaining it with a geometry, with a structure, which makes it totally unavoidable. And it's not something that I'm suggesting. It is something which is gonna have to be put in place in order to give back a certain harmony into the whole thing. So maybe I've diverted a little bit from the question. Sorry, Piero. But in the book, I give you a roadmap, literally, which will drive you there with absolute 100% chances of success. That's my aim. Yeah.
So the most important tool seems to be a good constitution.
Yeah.
How do we convince people around us, and of course maybe even get politicians to back us, because they don't have an interest in us succeeding to that, to rewrite a constitution?
So first, the constitution should be written by people drawn by lot, never the technocrats or the legal specialists or the politicians. No, you want to have a true representative of the people, a lot of people, sitting together, I'd say every other year, every 2 years, in order to reread and rewrite the amendments to the Constitution, which is going to give power back to the people, protect the people from the dictatorship of the governments. A constitution should be readable by a 7-year-old. The future of humanity lies in our youth, not in old gits like I am. Sorry for that. But it's just a fact of life. So the constitution should be available, should be readable, should be usable. And there is a proverb, which is not really a proverb, it's a judicial concept, which says that no one should ignore the law. Today, we have hundreds of thousands of pages of law allowing everything and its opposite, depending on the financial interest behind or the interest of power. This should be, shrunk to its simplest form in order to make it available to the people. How do you possibly can have an accomplished life into an environment which is inaccessible to you? Doesn't work that way. If you have to read hundreds of thousands of pages of rules in order to insert yourself into the environment that we have written, that we have created, you have no chances of getting the life we all hope for. No, we need to shrink the whole thing to its simplest form. And the Constitution should be revised, if you wish, revisited every other year with people drawn by lot so that you have a true representative selection of the people, as many women as men, as many young as old, manual as intellectual, religious, non-religious, and so forth. That's the only way to have a true global representation of the people. So the Constitution is the way to do so. Of course, the politicians are not going to give it to you overnight. Would the dinosaurs have given place to mammals just because it was in the interest of biodiversity? Are you out of your mind? Are you joking? No, you grab what is giving you your quality of life, your comfort, your capacity to transmit life, provide good education to your kids, and so as much as you can. You're never going to let it go. So we need to convince the politicians that we have a superior model which is in the interest of the people they are meant to manage. I'd say that no leader can be happy if its people is not. That's a fact of life. We need to convince them of the superior model we are presenting, and they will implement it because they want to enter the history book. And I suspect Donald J. Trump is in this category. He wants to enter the history book as the person that has given back its strength to democracies, not as the collaborators of a financial and power system which is enslaving the greatest majority. And if we can, convey this idea and convince the people of this superior model, nothing will resist it. It's exactly like the Chinese. The Chinese, they never invaded any other countries. They created the Great Chinese Wall in order to stop invasion from coming in. But they were invaded a few times. But they Chineseized, if you wish, all their invaders by convincing them to adopt their superior model. And it never took more than 10, 20, at the most 30 years. When you read my book, 2024, available on Amazon, available on my website, forovet24.com, you'll find a superior model which will impose itself because it's going to give back its strength to the citizens, which need to not only believe in themselves but trust their feelings, trust their opinions on what is good or what is not so good for them. And when this superior model will be, that is the reason why I've written it for most in English. Of course, it's in French, and I love writing in French. I wouldn't even say that nowadays my French is probably slightly superior to my English, because I use English sometimes, with my good friends and so forth. But I've written it in English. So be my guest. Write the articles about the Constitution. Read, not write. Interesting lapsus. Read what I've written about sources of revenues of state, of politicians. Read what is the business model of our current democracies, where they making you fearing dangers which do not exist in order to justify the money they're taking from you to protect you. Let me tell you, if someone asks you to be paid for his protection, run, because it's the business model of the Cosa Nostra, it's the business model of the mafia in Chicago, in Boston, New York, every big state, every big city of the US. We've spent billions trying to erase mafia, which business model was pay me and I'll protect you against dangers that do not exist, that I will create by myself. But you'll pay me because I have sufficient violence to protect you against those created dangers. It is the exact same business model as the state used today to grab every penny or as much of the value of your hard work through taxes, inflation, debt, you name them. We need to erase that model. Is the wrong model. 2024 gives you the model that, from a constitutional point of view and a legal point of view, protects you from the abuse that our government, have put in place. And let's face it, they've put it in place through complexifying the legal framework and the constitutional framework. A constitution which is 300 plus pages doesn't defend the interest of your kids. No, it defends the special interests of those who are in the strategic position to abuse it, to use it. That's the way it works. So 2024 gives you the model, the superior model that will allow politicians, our ally, to enter the history book as the people who have changed this mess and given you back your freedom.
One of the ways you seem to be applying is quite peculiar. It's a bit like Gandhi, what you call the constitutional walks.
Absolutely.
What is that about?
Okay, what is the strongest weapon, in inverted comma, of human beings? Well, it is walking. Why? Because we're all coming from the African Rift, and we've conquered each and every environment that this planet has given us through walking. We went from place to place and we established ourselves everywhere. Now, if I revert to a more recent time, of course, look at the way Mahatma Gandhi, through organizing the Salt Marches, has reconquered its independence for both India and Pakistan from the greatest colonial power ever existed on this planet. And it took only a few years, because what he did was walking with, I have this picture at home where you see Mahatma Gandhi leaving his place with 3 friends. There are the 4 of them. And they start walking because they want to gather salt for free. They were imposed, they were taxed massively on salt. And they said, no, this is not on. No, we want to access salt for free. And they started marching away, constitutional marches. Wait. I've been once taken into about 200,000 people walking through a city. When you are part of 200,000 people walking through a city, you realize the strength. It's, the economy stops completely. No more public transport, no more trains, no more buses, no more cars. All the shops are inaccessible. You can't access them. The cafe, the restaurants, no, you cannot enter them. You have 200,000 people occupying each and every bit of the city. It is unstoppable. And we are going to organize the constitutional walks, constitutional marches in each and every country that deserves it, i.e., to force the politicians to be in the service of the people once again. And they will be binded to giving you what you pay them for, because their duty is to give you the structures in which you can blossom and create value. That is your role as a citizen. And if those people which are meant to give you those structures are functioning like 80% of the value of your hard work, you're nothing else but a slave. And how can you survive into an environment as such? No, it doesn't work that way. So we're gonna walk through to those buildings that the state overall use in order to enslave you. And we're going to require that they hold a constitutional meeting with people drawn by lot in order to recreate and rewrite the constitutions. And you will find, I would say, the roadmap to that constitution already pre-written. I have people telling me, it's going to be very difficult and rewriting all that. I said, no. It's already done. Read constitutional articles. I think it's my chapter 11, a heavy one, let's face it, because it's very technical. And it had to be that way to be credible. Otherwise, you would have think, this guy is just a dreamer. Yeah, my head might be in the sky, but I promise you my feet are firmly on the ground. And this is why it's got road holding. And try it, we need to rewrite those, but we will have to impose it. Because even if some of our politicians are still quite benevolent towards their own people, they will need to be forced into it. Because it is not in their short-term interest. They will have to give up some of their revenues. One of the main things is to have a tax system which is even and equal for each and everyone. And of course, they're going to resist that because it's going to kill some of the sources of revenues. Today in Europe, in continental Europe, Western Europe, you have taxes on absolutely everything. On your clothing, on your food, you have VAT on everything. When you put $100 of petrol into your car, you give $80 minimum to the state, and you still think that, no, my direct taxes are only 30%. This is a joke. You pay taxes on tobacco, alcohol, cinema, restaurant, on using the roads. Man, this is an institutional robbery, and we need to get out of it. So read my constitutional articles, and you have how would I say that? You have a roadmap literally to follow, so that once you have the people drawn by lot into a room, they have a guideline, and they know that education is the foremost important issue, health in the second. When I say, by the way, education, I consider the media to be part of the education system at an adult stage of the human being, when people are adults. And we need auto-regulation. It's all written. Excuse me. I'm not going to go, of course, through the whole thing right now, but please be my guest. Read it through. Get this logic for yourself. And we'll go there together, I promise you. I'm basically handing you my rope. And I'm saying, I was a mountain guide in inverted comma in the Swiss Army. I've taken thousands of people on many, many different summits. And I'm saying to you, you are probably the guy who's never been on the summit. And you look at all those ridges, glaciers, seracs and arêtes and what have you. You think to yourself, well, how the hell am I going to get to the summit? No. This is my rope. You take the carabiner, put it on your harness, and follow me. I've walked this path many times. Enjoy the scenery, and we'll get to the summit together. This is my commitment to you. And I've worked flat out over the last 4 years with all my people, not only in Switzerland, but in France, in the UK, in the US, in Russia, as paradoxical it may seem, Brazil, and. People came to my place. We reviewed my chapter on legal. We reviewed with Doctor of Medicine my chapter on health. And I've done this due diligence on your behalf. Please get it for yourself and check it out. Trust your own feeling. If you think I'm totally out of my mind, please interact. If you go on the website after each chapter, exactly like on a YouTube video, you have a section for comments. And please write. Tell me, Pascal, you're totally out of your mind. That's going to be the driver of my own growth. And actually it's being generous, not only with yourself, but with me, egoistically speaking. So be my guest, but check it out.
Pascal Borel, thank you very much for your time. I will put the link in the description of the video to your website and to your books. And we'll speak again.
Thank you so much, Pierre, for welcoming me. It's always a pleasure to be with you, my dear. Thank you very much.